Hi, I'm Ed Pierce, and in this video, you're going to learn to carve a beautiful duck decoy. This is my workstation, and it's a fair representation of the kind of setup you'd see from most pro carvers. It has a dust collector, with the intake point being right in front of where I sit when I carve. Carving has come a long way the past few years, especially for serious carvers, those who carve for competitions. You'll be learning power carving. Power carving is using a rotary tool that holds grinding bits to carve with. Having the right collection of bits is of course critical no matter what you're carving, but we've all made the mistake of buying bits that we didn't really need because that seems to be a rite of passage for new carvers. Carving this decoy only requires 10 bits, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about bits right now because you'll see every bit that you'll need as we go along. As a rule, professional carvers like to carve blanks cut out from patterns they've designed themselves, but for this video, we're going to be using a blank that I ordered from one of the carving suppliers. It's anatomically correct and it's already been rounded to shape so we can get straight to the detail carving. As you get more experience, you'll probably want to carve blanks from patterns you've designed. But for the first few decoys, I suggest that you use a blank like this. The decoy we'll be carving in this video won't be a hunting decoy. It will be a decorative decoy. Decorative decoys are carved and painted to look as lifelike as possible and displayed in home or office. Before you can carve a decorative decoy, you need a good pattern. It should be life-size and preferably with the detail shown on the back and side pockets. When you carve your decoy, I suggest that the first thing you do is the head, and you should spend a lot of time on it because that's where the personality of the carving shows through. To begin, take a pencil and draw a center line right down the center of the head. Be careful to get it as exact as you possibly can. This will help you keep the symmetry correct as we do the rest of the carving steps on the head later. When we're satisfied that the center line is correct, then we come to the first critical measurement that we take in doing the head. And the first critical measurement that you should take is the width of the bill where the bill meets the face. That's because with most blanks, the bill flares out as it comes up to meet the head, where in real life the bill is straight all the way to the face. What you're doing here is just beginning to carve in the first hints of some detail. Most carvers find the underside of the bill harder to do than the top, and the relief lines provide good safe boundaries to work inside of. After the relief cuts have been made, go ahead and begin to carve the detail in using the tapered barrel bit. The first thing we need to do is cut a groove from the eye hole to the bill. This is called the eye channel. You should plan to spend as much time as necessary on the head, and especially on the eyes. Remember, the first thing someone will look at when they look at your carving is the head, because that's where the life is. The reason that you use a round toothpick instead of something else is that by using a toothpick, you won't accidentally scratch the eye. After you have the eye opened and you're satisfied with the way it looks, take the emery board and begin to sand away the excess filler. Just continue to use the emery board and remove as much excess filler as you can. Next, we'll draw in the flow lines that will follow when we do the texturing. Once the flow lines are drawn in, we'll switch over to this cone-shaped bit. It's small and the top edge is sharp, making it an excellent bit for texturing. The purpose behind texturing is to put feather detail and depth into the carving. If you don't intend to burn, let me encourage you to texture a second time, and maybe even a third time. If you do intend to burn, again use the same technique. Make your strokes shorter and at a slightly different angle
so that you're creating the very short feather hairs on the head and neck.
Just like with texturing, you'll probably have to burn more than one time. Usually I'll burn twice and sometimes 3 times. I just burn until I get a look I'm satisfied with. Now that the breast has been carved more or less to shape, we'll drill holes in the head and the body so that when it comes time to attach the head to the body, we can anchor it firmly in place using a nail. Pay close attention to the gentle S-curves that I carved in. The S-curve creates a graceful, flowing look. I've carved, textured, and burned the right side of the head and the body almost to completion to give you a preview of what the decoy will look like when it's finished. I've drawn in the back feathers and done the relief cuts with the burning pin, and now we'll layer them. Now take some sandpaper and dress down the edges of the feathers so that they lay softly one on top of the other. If the feathers look a little bit ragged after you get them carved, just go back with knife or burning pin and redefine the original shapes. Because the tail is narrower coming out of the body than it is at the tip, we'll have to shape it down. And to do this, we'll use the round sanding bit. After you get the tail slimmed down to size, then you can begin to shape it on top. Go slowly and be careful as you undercut these primaries. This blade isn't big enough to cut all the way underneath the primaries. So next we'll switch to this 1¼ inch diameter circular saw blade. And we'll also sharpen up and undercut the tail feathers. And now is a good time to cut in some feather splits on the tail. Even though the head will be anchored by a nail as well as glued, it's still a good idea to cut a checkerboard into the head and the body so that you'll get the strongest possible adhesion with the wood glue. Making sure that we have the head positioned exactly the way we want it, we'll press the head into place and hold it firmly for about a minute. After we're sure that the glue is dried, then we'll begin to blend the neck and breast areas together using the round sanding drum. It's important that you let the wood filler dry thoroughly. Any attempt at doing anything with the wood filler before it's thoroughly dry will definitely clog up a bit. The best way to do the blending and finish work as you remove the excess wood filler is to keep turning the carving over and over in your hand. Keep in mind that the flow from the neck into the breast area should be a gentle S-curve. After the texturing was done, I tinted the areas where the white wood filler had been so that I could get a consistency of color across the entire decoy. Having a consistency of color helps you study the carving to see if any corrections need to be made. You can follow each and every step that you've seen on this video perfectly, but if you haven't gathered your reference material and studied it closely, your carving still won't be realistic. Obviously, the best source of reference material would be a well-done mount done by a taxidermist. Having a mounted bird allows you to study it in all 3 dimensions, and also see things that you probably would miss in a photograph. You may have noticed in the last segment that of the mounts that you looked at, a canvas back wasn't one of them. That's because I don't have a canvas back mount. What I do have is the Great Gallery of Ducks by Richard Lemaster. Richard Lemaster was a carver, and the photographs in this book reflect his understanding of the things carvers would look for when they were researching reference material. Any carving supplier who handles reference books, and most of them do, will carry the Great Gallery of Ducks. It's a good investment, and I recommend it highly. I referred to it a lot as I did the canvas back for this video, and I intend to refer to it even more when I do the painting. But that'll be all of the painting that I'll be doing on this carving for several days. Experience has taught me that it's a mistake to begin painting too quickly after I finish a carving. I'm seldom satisfied with the carving I've finished at first anyway, and if I start painting too soon, invariably I'll find places on the carving that I want to fine-tune and touch up. To go back and do more carving, texturing, or burning on an area that's already been painted is risky business. It can be done because I've done it, but I don't recommend it, especially for new carvers. So I'll just look at the carving for the next 2 or 3 days and wait on those areas that I'm missing now to jump out at me. For those of you who are interested, there will be a companion video available on painting this canvas bag, and that should be available sometime in the early fall. And I hope that you found my approach to carving and my method of teaching easy to understand and easy to follow. I can tell you that I've found carving to be one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. And I hope that as you continue with your carving, that someday you'll be able to say the same thing too.